Are you wondering or curious about being a planet-friendly florist? Is that even a kind of contradiction in its own terms? Because aren't we florists handling just naturally grown flowers and planet-friendly ingredients all day long? Well, I'm going to share with you a few thoughts and ideas for how I think every single one of us can be more planet-friendly as florists. And some of you may be taking steps, but I think it's all about baby steps, and I'm kind of slightly obsessed with COP26 at the minute in Glasgow, and that's what's got me onto planet-friendly floristry. So my first thing is what we do for wrapping and delivery and sending. Now, many established florists and even those setting up will think, oh, I need to have some plastic, oh, I need to have some wrapping, oh, I need to have some vases. And it's just a practical thing, isn't it? Oh, I need to have buckets, oh, I need to wash them with bleach. But do you really need to wash your buckets with bleach? Are there more environmentally friendly alternatives that you can use? Yes, all florists need clean buckets for flowers, don't get me wrong, but I think each one of us could perhaps explore an alternative. I know this takes time. I know many established floral businesses have their ways of delivering bouquets, ways of wrapping bouquets, but if we could, if all of us could just look to eliminate or start to cut out, and maybe even look at our suppliers. Do they have eco-friendly credentials? Are there paper products made from recyclable products? Do we need to ship from one end of the country and up to another? Or can we look at focusing on a more local and sustainable delivery of the flowers that we have for our business? So that first bit is all about just some practical pieces of wrapping and vases. Do you know, I'm a great one for charity shops. Now, while many of us might not have the time to trawl the charity shops, a lot of charity shops you can just go in, pick up a load of vases, and you don't have to source in the ones that are theoretically very cheap that come in from abroad, but at what manufacturing cost and carbon footprint are those glass vases on our shelves? So the second thing is obviously the flowers. Fresh flowers are flown into the UK and all around the world from everywhere. So particularly for the UK, it all comes through the Netherlands, and flowers come from Colombia, from Kenya, you know, from everywhere. But do we really need to have those flowers from everywhere? Can we look at perhaps sourcing some of our flowers much more locally on our doorsteps? Now, I belong to an organisation in the UK called Flowers from the Farm, and there are growers up and down the country that are larger and smaller growers that will sell wholesale to florists. Is there an opportunity to perhaps find somebody where you could have a very, very local supply of flowers to you, that then means you're not having headaches over delivery or damaged flowers? You don't have to worry in the winter if the channel's a bit choppy and the ship isn't coming over, or even have the thought about how much carbon footprint is that flower that I'm arranging with, and the flight that it's just come in from Ethiopia or Kenya. So flowers are a mainstay of the business, and I think there are lots of little steps that each one of us can have a look at. Now, I've gone to the point of I grow my own flowers, and on my YouTube channel a lot of our videos share what I grow, where I'm growing and how I grow. And I would say for anybody who's really interested in floristry and flowers, you do get to a point where you think, oh, I could perhaps grow only a few little things. For florists, an obvious one for me is sweet peas. They are so tricky to get hold of, so expensive to buy, but they are relatively easy to grow. So have a little think about perhaps some options for you to at least change your supply chain. And I know this takes time, and I know lots of people have established supply chains. Have a little think about what you could perhaps do differently on that. The other thing with flowers is, can they be repurposed? So for the flowers that I grow here, again on my YouTube channel, I show you, for the ones that I'm not selling fresh, how I dry them and I create everlastings. So these everlastings give me 2 bites of the cherry. If I don't sell the flower fresh, I then get to dry it and then I get to reuse it. So it means that that flower, even if I don't use it, it goes in my composting bin. But the issue with flowers that come in from all over the place is sometimes they have a lot of chemicals in them, and you can't really easily put them in a natural composting bin because those chemicals will leach out and will make it pretty difficult to compost them. The other thing, as a florist, I really have got to the point where I like my own flowers, and it's you know, you don't know what chemicals are on that stem. So if you have a look at your supply chain, you can perhaps reassure yourself of those things. So for the dried and for the fresh, you are making lots and lots of things for your customers, and your customers have certain expectations, and those expectations have been built around years and years of a floral industry that has been supplying every type of flower in every month all year round. This comes at, unfortunately, a bit of an environmental cost. So if you want roses in December, they've got to be shipped in from abroad. There's nobody in the UK, for example, who's going to be able to grow a rose in September. Now, in the southern hemisphere, you're fine, but in the northern hemisphere, I would say perhaps we can start to think about alternatives. Would we offer ranunculus that perhaps other large-scale growers in this country could offer instead of roses? Can we look at narcissi and daffodils and tulips from large-scale growers in this country? Now, none of this is a perfect solution, and I'm a huge advocate of seasonality, and it's all about education. So while there are lots of big companies who talk about ethical floristry, I think it's really important that each one of us is happy with those phrases of ethical floristry. I saw a note quite recently from a doctor who was working in third world countries treating women's backs because they were growing flowers, and this was an ethical flower farm, but they couldn't stand up. They weren't allowed to stand up because the farm wanted them to keep tending the crops. So this, you know, there are hidden costs to sometimes a beautiful flower on our table. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with looking at being a planet-friendly florist is the things that we make for Christmas, like wreaths. So you may have shifted from floral foam. We all know that's, you know, plastic and it doesn't degrade for 100 years. But you know, you may not, because it's terribly convenient, isn't it? And we've been using it for years, and why change now? Well, the why change now is really about perhaps your customers are becoming more aware of the environmental impact of plastics and would want to see an alternative. So you can switch to moss and wireframes and wiring, and you know, that's a great alternative to plastic floral foam. I've got to the point though where I've kind of moved on from that, and I'm looking for things to be biodegradable, so more willow and stems and no wires at all, because what I found is they don't degrade very well, and I want to be able to kind of compost my pieces. When I'm asked for funeral arrangements, often it's for natural burials, and the places don't allow anything that won't actually be biodegradable. So for each of our floral pieces, and I've run an online class recently to share how I can make these completely sustainable everlasting flower wreaths with mechanics that are completely biodegradable. Each one of us can have a little look at how we create and how we make, and then perhaps shift in a little baby step to changing how we do things. So planet-friendly florals, I think they're all about just shifting, taking baby steps. I know the great and the good leaders at COP26 will be discussing the big things, and it does come down to a lot of finance and a lot of goodwill to shift. But I genuinely believe that in the last 2 years has taught us anything, then it can be that each one of us can make a little difference by little steps that we take. So I'd be delighted to hear of your planet-friendly floral suggestions too. I think it's all about embracing the new, looking forward to doing things slightly differently, really looking at seasonality, looking at perhaps your local environment, your local growers, looking at perhaps engaging with your customers and seeing whether they are interested or willing or actually have a desire to change and move forward for sustainability. Anyway, hopefully see you soon in the next video.